lives in you and me. I can do nothing can stand in my way. Move mountain, I can do anything. Yes, I can.
So happy that everybody is connected tonight, and I am joined with one of my great friends. We've been friends for a long time. I consider him more family than friend. Sometimes you consider some people like that annoying little cousin. So he's about that person that sometimes you want to look and see if they been choked out during the night or they still here. But I'm so happy that you all get to see a candid conversation that we have, as we have conversations all the time, mostly via text. But in quarantine, we get to talk to Darnell Nolin today. How are you, sir?
I am good now that I know where I stand. The little cousin who we making sure doesn't get choked out. I got it. No. I'm good. How about you?
I am good. It's wonderful to see where you stand. I want to start out saying when I want to start out with something sad, and then we're going to something good. You've been hit a lot. Of course, we're having this conversation via social distancing and quarantine, and having to be creative in this time, which we're going to talk about creativity tonight and being creative for those of you who are watching. But I wanted to give my condolences to your family, because for the last few months, y'all have been really hit really hard. For those of you who don't know, he is a part of the Evans family. Clay Evans, that all of us know. Well, I won't say all of us, a new generation probably didn't know who he was, but for those of us who were church kids, we knew Clay Evans, Reverend Clay Evans. And then it's just gone down the list. His wife, all of you have experienced some loss. So I wanted to ask, how is your family doing? I sympathize with you. I don't have that same loss, but I've really been thinking about how have you all been able to process grief in these distance, in this type of time where you're not able to, we usually have big celebrations, we get to come together and eat chicken and macaroni and green beans and church tea, but now we're not able to do any of that. So how have you all been coping with all of this in the last few months?
It's definitely been an adjustment. So he was the first, of course, to pass, and he passed the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So of course that was before all of this hit, before the pandemic hit. So we were able to celebrate him, and sure church fashion, true church fashion. So that was something. Ironically enough, and I can't remember. I know we talked, but I don't know if you knew. I was actually in Chicago when he
No.
So it was ironic, but not a coincidence. I believe God does all things well. I was working in Chicago, and literally we did a live recording at the church that Tuesday. And that Wednesday morning, before I could wake up good, I was staying at a hotel because I was there for work, and my phone was going off, and it was that he had passed. So that was kind of a hit, but he was 90 plus years old, and he had prepared us in so many ways. For years, I feel like he prepared us. Fast forward to, a couple months later, that's when the shockers kind of took place. His wife, she had been ill for a number of years, but still, once you get a relative or someone who bounces back, when it happens, you're kind of like, wait, what happened? Like, you not bouncing back this time. So that was the first. That was kind of amid the pandemic. And then I lost another aunt literally a week later. And then maybe 2 weeks later, we lost his youngest daughter. So my cousin.
Yeah, that was
And
like sudden.
it knocked the wind out of us. Like literally that morning when I got the call, because at that point I was back in Nashville. When I got the call, I was just like kind of like in a daze, and it probably did not hit me until right before I traveled home, which was maybe 3 or 4 days later. Because with the social distancing, I think it's easier for us to put it on the back burner. Because you don't have the same closure that we're used to culturally and as church people and all of that. So for me, I feel like my grief was delayed personally until probably the last one. That death kind of like was like, okay, you need to go back and process everything, because amid my aunts dying a week apart at the onset of the pandemic, my mother was very, very ill, and we didn't know if she had COVID. And fortunately she did not, but she was ill to the point that she couldn't even go to either her aunt's funeral, neither her aunt's funeral or her sister's funeral. So even when I was there in Chicago, my focus was making sure that my mother was getting well. So I never had time to stop and process. But we are adjusting, and I think we're all in a place of kind of processing and finding the new norm. It sucks to have a social distancing funeral because, I mean, you can't hug, you can't grab. I made a post when my cousin passed that because of the type of family I grew up in, I had several uncles that were pastors. My grandfather was the only brother out of his siblings who was not a pastor, but he owned a funeral home, which is still a ministry within itself, right? So we've always had to share our family. That comes with good stuff. That comes with stuff that you feel like you could do without. But to have people, to be used to having to share those moments with people and then not, it was kind of an adjustment. But as we jump off of that, I'll let you go to the next thing. It kind of, I feel like this pandemic is serving some purposes, and one of them is making those of us, especially Pastor Mario, sit down in one spot. It kind of like we're so used to the hustle and bustle and doing this and that, and I think this pandemic kind of forced everybody to sit down and like deal with them or deal with what's going on or deal with whatever life is dishing at that moment. So whereas my heart is definitely grieved, I feel like it happened at a moment where we can actually take time to heal.
So you brought up an interesting point that I was going to ask, and you alluded to it, that we're not moving as much as we would normally be moving, and it's causing us to be still. But I wanted to see from a faith-based community that, of course, you were raised in, a lot of times as, how do I preface this, with some of our people. Let's say our people, I'm not just talking about Christian, the body of Christ, I'm talking about the African American community. Sometimes we do not process grief. And it then extends itself. I know there are stages of grief, and sometimes they're not even just talking about stages as far as these are the set ones you're going to go through, but linear and things you will experience many different things: anger, questioning, grieving, all those type of things. But I wanted to ask, how are you, your family? You can't speak for everybody else, but like even in thinking through it, how are you able? Because there was a funeral that we had recently at our church, and it bothered me in the sense of when these people are passing, no one's at their bed, no family member, because usually when you talk about closure, we're talking about closure from people are able to say their last goodbyes, they're able to be there, hold their hand. Sometimes people take pictures of this is the last time I held my dad's hand, my mom's hand. But this is a type of grieving that people have never experienced before, where the next time sometimes you see that person is in a casket, or if you're not able to be close to them, you're seeing it through a screen. How do you make peace with that? And you might not have the answer. I'm just asking.
Yeah, no. I think it's different for everybody, but I think the key to it is acknowledging the space that you're in and allowing yourself to process. So for example, the first funeral after my uncle, so it was his wife, I did not travel back home for that. So literally I watched her services on the live feed on my couch. So it was very different. It was very different. Fortunately, this sounds crazy. Fortunately, having lived in different cities outside of Chicago, there have been funerals that I just, for whatever reason, time, money, whatever, that I didn't travel back home for. So it wasn't uncommon to miss a funeral and having to work through whatever that was later. So let me rewind. I also said in a post that for us this year was kind of reminiscent, or started to feel like 2009, and that was because of 2009 we had lost like because I have a really large family. We had lost like, I think it was 6 relatives in 7 months. Mm-hmm. So that was a thing of its own. That was 09. 2011, I lost my grandmother. She was 90. She would have been 91, like if she had lived another 2 months or whatever. And even in that, God was in that. Like I was able to spend time with her because she fell ill all of a sudden. My grandmother had not been ill, 2-time breast cancer survivor, all of that. And she literally fell ill while I was home for the holidays. Mm-hmm. When I wasn't even planning to go home. But her death had rocked me like no death had ever rocked me before. To the point that she died in January. In August, I worked a session, a live session, recording session. And we broke down, we were done. I drove home and literally sat in my driveway and cried from like 1 a.m. to 4. And I was like, okay, this is not right. Like, let's figure out what it was. And I text all my cousins, like, is anybody else experiencing this? Blah, blah. And they were like, yeah, like, we cry here and there. And I was like, nah, this isn't right. Something, we got to figure this out. And I actually went to counseling for it. So through counseling, I feel like for me personally, I received some tools that helped me through it. You know what I'm saying? And also being mindful of the culture that we're in. Because pandemic or not, culturally speaking, our country does not handle death as other countries do, or other cultures. Meaning, once you get those 3 days for work and your loved one is buried, like things fall right back in.
The world just moves on.
Yeah, like it just moves on. I remember when my grandfather died, and I was a teenager, and my mother said the thing again. Death doesn't intrigue me, but I was raised with a family who owns a funeral home, so death just kind of has it's not what some people may think is morbid and dark. I don't look at it like that. Mm-hmm. But I remember when my grandfather died, my mother said for her, what she got out of it was that no matter who it is, when death happens and the world never stops moving. Mm. Bill collectors want their money, you know, people, your job wants you to perform, they want this, they want that. So for me, to answer your question, for me, it was just, the main thing is to be present in the moment and to deal with it so that it's not something I'm circling back to or that it festers into something else. So that means allowing myself the space to feel, to acknowledge. And I think you can do those two without getting stuck. Um, and I've been practicing that. And it's funny because again, I had my brother laughing. I was like, "Hey, you're down on my list for emergency contacts at where I live, in the building that I live in." I was like, "So they call you and tell you they heard screaming and hollering like at 1:00 in the morning?" Yeah, that was probably like one of those days that I was processing. But it literally, for me, it literally all hit. It all hit right before I went home from my cousin. And when I say it hit, I literally went back even to my uncle's passing to acknowledge and be like, "Hey, this part of your life will never be the same. Like, this is a new norm." I was walking, like I said, he passed the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So his funeral was like the first week of December. I was literally walking in the first service of the two that we did. I was on my phone, like making sure that things got delivered for work because we were in the midst of making sure our holiday projects was in and blah, blah. I was literally talking to artists on my phone. So I never stopped.
Yeah.
To
And
deal with
that's and we're gonna come back to that because you were still creating while grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to come back to that as far as during the pandemic, during crisis, how do you still create in the midst of that? So
Sure.
those of you who are watching, we're not going to be talking about death and dying and grieving this entire time. So for those of you like, this is not what I planned to tune into, I just wanted to not insult what he has been experiencing because he's still, I think it has set the tone and the foundation for the night because many of us are experiencing grief of some kind. Maybe it not be a physical person, but maybe it might be something in grieving of what the normal that you want to have in your life that's not coming back. And now what does that look like as it relates to creating and still moving and still operating, maybe at a slower pace, but how do you do that? So we're gonna come back to that. But one more thing I want to say before we get into the creative part, that was the sad, I said I was gonna start with something sad. Now I'm going into something more jovial, is that you just got engaged. Say what? Say who? Who does that?
So, and it's funny, me and her laugh, me and Tiffany laugh, my fiance, because we feel like we had just missed the pandemic. Like literally, we got engaged March 8th. And I literally left Chicago that Monday, came back to Nashville, had to go out with an artist that Wednesday for like a promo run. Literally that Wednesday, before we could start the promo run, first thing Thursday morning, I get a call from corporate, like, everybody get back home. And of course, that's kind of when it started picking up. So we got engaged right before the pandemic. It wasn't a result of the pandemic. But yeah, we got engaged in March. And it's funny, having to adjust some things. We were scheduled to get married in September of this year. So it's going to be pushed back to next year because, yeah, we want people like Mario to be able to travel without worry and anxiety. Yeah, so
I wasn't gonna worry. I was just gonna FaceTime you and be like, "Congratulations."
That's funny. But no, and then really, honestly, even outside of the travel and stuff, we was just like, "Hey, how can we ask people to, get their tugs or like people trying to figure out life right now?" So, literally, we will be married in 2021.
Yeah, well, congratulations. So that I'm very excited and I'm in prayer for Tiffany and for the life that she will live as a result of being connected to you. Blessed Jesus, He is our Savior. So I wanted to talk about, for those of you who don't know what you do now, let's talk about what you do because those of you who are from the Windy City, you do know that he is from Chicago, Illinois. So he kept making references to it. So he's from Chicago, but he reluctantly He knew that a season was upon him of change, but he reluctantly moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where he is at now. So let's talk about what you do, why you moved to Nashville, and what you are doing now there.
So yes, I moved to Nashville, back to Nashville, because I lived here once before, but I moved to Nashville September of 2018 to come and work for Entertainment One. So most are familiar with Entertainment One from artists such as Jonathan Nelson, Jonathan McReynolds, Todd Delaney, Deidre Cadden, Pastor John P. Key, most recently Latisse Crawford, Selena Johnson, as well as Q Parker. So I got the call in July of 2018, asking me would I consider coming back to Nashville, which I was clawing my way to come back to Nashville. I love Nashville. Nashville is a great city, and I originally moved here in '09. Just to be closer to the music industry. And seeds from that time started popping up some years later. And because of the relationship, I got a call asking would I consider coming back to take a position in marketing and promotions. So I do marketing and promotions for eOne. And I kind of hesitate because some other things that kind of come under my belt. And God has a sense of humor. My history has been working with independent artists. That is what I love. That's who I love. I feel like there's a lot of talent out there that, who are successful, but are indie, are not backed, are self-financed for whatever reasons. And God would have it that I would come and work for a label that would then ask me to oversee a division that primarily works with independent artists. So if you ever heard of a digital distribution arm of eOne called Indie Blue, I had the privilege to work and to kind of oversee that day to day. So yep, that is what I do. Working with artists and creatives. That is what my heart passion is.
Well, for all the creatives that we have tonight that are watching, you being a creative and you have created many different content for quite a while and you continue to create. I want to talk, you have come up with what is called, and let me find it so I can say it correctly how you say it for those of you who need to know. He has come up with some things for us creatives, a creative guide, a quarantine creative guide. Don't we need a guide? It's not that we love to be creative, but sometimes we need some parameters to create through. It's a list about breathing and stretching, practicing, decluttering, add toxic shorty to the block list. Now, what was that? What does that mean? Talk about
that person who drains you, that person who taps into your creativity, that person who interrupts your life. Okay. Go ahead, use this time of separating. Mm-hmm. Just go ahead and block them.
It says buy the domain, wash your hair, say clip your ends.
Listen, let me help the people. Today is Friday. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not dirty. I do shower. But this is probably the dressiest I have been always. Yeah. Just to jump on this loud. So sometimes we need a reminder, spruce up a little bit.
Well, there's one thing you said, one of your list, the quarantine for adulting, for the schedule. One of the things it says, the morning fuel is to center yourself, pray, meditate on the word. And maybe this is what I struggle with some, and maybe a lot of creatives, because our mind does not stop. It is constantly creating, constantly going. We're in, what month is this? Whatever month we're in right now. Every day seems like the same.
Yeah, I feel like we're still in March.
Yeah, it's just so much. I'm like, what's the day? Friday, Saturday? What is it? So we're in whatever day we're in, whatever month we're in, but we're always thinking or planning or musing about something that has not yet to come yet, or that's before us. How do you suggest for creatives, how do we learn how to center ourselves? Yes, some do meditation, some do prayer, some get up and do affirmations and all these different things, but to before you get up, and start to just launch out into all these different things and areas, how do you come to that center of yourself?
Sure. So I addressed that on that post that I sent you, the guidelines or the quarantining
Hmm.
kind of structure, but it's something that you definitely have to be intentional about. Hear me when I say I have not mastered it.
Okay.
So it's things that I put in place. Some days I succeed and I do great, and some days I'm rolling over, picking up my phone, looking at an email or a text message or whatever. But what has worked for me is I have put my phone on a timer
Hmm.
where it may go to sleep after a certain time and it won't necessarily wake up until after a certain time.
Yeah.
That has helped, or just intentionally like placing my phone far away from the bed,
Okay.
and just putting it somewhere where I'm not picking up. So one is, if it's just you sitting on your bed and just gathering your thoughts and preparing for the
Mhm.
day, but not jumping into anything. Of course, a lot of us are now living and operating in new norms.
Yes.
So as if my job was not already the type of job that wasn't bound by 9 to 5. It's even worse now because the place that I like live and is my sanctuary is now also my office because I'm working from home. So the thing about it is setting those boundaries and being intentional. So it may not be, one morning may require you 20 minutes. You just need to sit and talk to God. Another morning may be 5. But how you do it is that you're intentional, and that you even map out like what does that look like for you. Is it you sitting on the side of the bed praying?
Mhm.
Is it you grabbing a cup of coffee and sitting in your living room without turning on, the TV? What is it? I think you have to find what first of all what realistically works, because everybody's living accommodations and situations are different. We're all in the house. Like, how do you do it? Do you say, okay, hey, my door's closed for 15 minutes. Don't nobody come in. Like I think you have to find what works. But the answer to your question is being intentional.
In intentionality, I want to ask, do you feel as if, as creatives, that creatives can be also easily distracted? So, being that we are in quarantine, and we are in socially distance rules, um, is our creativity sometimes um, hindered based on when we go into social media and start to balance our lack of progression, or what we don't see as moving, or what we don't see as working, or whatever, through the lens of sometimes other creatives? Like, creatives are sometimes competing with other creatives or looking at other creatives, and it's hindering your own creativity because you're looking through the lens of it's like Picasso connected to another army, like we're just paying attention. how
Yeah,
how do you feel that that's something that is true, something that we have to constantly balance or deal with?
yeah. I think it's true. You have to constantly balance. I have even found myself, because there's a thin line between being encouraged,
Mm,
um, being compared, and even being envious, right?
wait,
Like it's
wait, hold on. There's a difference between being encouraged, envious, and what's the other thing you
and
said?
compare.
And compare. I think those are probably just stages, that there
Yeah,
we need to recognize, be able to pause in the second and say, am I encouraged by what I see? Or am I comparing myself to what I see? Or am I being or envious of what I see? Which, when you get into envy, then you're into a whole nother state where now I'm saying, comparing, saying, I don't know if you should be where you are, because according to, it goes into,
because what I know about
yeah.
shit doesn't like equal up. Like, and the thing is, you don't know. We don't know. We don't know what one another has experienced to get there.
Mhm.
And guess this: social media allows me. It allows you to paint the picture that we want people to see.
Own
So we have to remember that. Let me tell you something. To be honest, I have people who I consider friends or associates or mentors from afar, depending on where I'm at and the space that I'm in. Oh, I'll hide them. I won't, like unfriend them. It's not that crucial. But if I'm in the space that I just want to make sure that I am aligned, that I'm right, that I'm not necessarily, trying to compare or trying to recreate what they've created because that may not work for me, I will hide them. I will hide their posts. I will hide their stories just so that my lens is not filtered or have a film over it. And I think you have to be intentional. And I think surroundings have everything to do with that. Who you surround yourself with, what you take in. It all plays a role. But I think the main thing is being intentional and I feel like this time of quarantine, if we don't get anything else, it should be us being awakened to who we are and recognizing where we're at.
Let's go back to even your uncle. Do you feel as if we may have been, let's go into the music community or the faith community, do you feel that we may have been more supportive of each other pre-social media than we are now?
I'm going to say yes. I will say yes. Let me tell you why. I just feel like the support and the camaraderie that once existed, not only in gospel music, but music period, like it doesn't these days. Not to say it's non-existent, but it just doesn't feel like it did in years past. Like the moment. I'm trying to think of some moments. Pretty much.
Because I feel back in, and I know I'm dating myself for those of you who are much more younger, but there were times where you would have the musicals, or you would have even so-and-so's church was coming to your church, or so-and-so would be a guest, whatever. And it wasn't, people didn't necessarily show up to hate. People are oftentimes, and I'm not trying to glorify everything about the past, say everything was right, but there was a lot of community that so-and-so would support so-and-so, someone would be on somebody else's album. And so, it was a lot of that I'm not sure I see as much anymore. I do see glimpses of it seeming to rise back up right now, and maybe it's because of this, like you said, this quarantine, where we're all on the same playing field, where all of our calendars have corona right now. I don't know, but it seems that that is a missing piece somewhere, that it's more of, I know what I know, and I'm going to keep knowing what I know, and I'm going to share what I know with you, or who I know with you. Unless you are going to give me something for
it. Being a little, like you said, short in our age, being a little bit older. So at this point, I see a generation before me and I see a generation behind me. And I actually would like to believe the generation behind me is trying to get back to some of the things the generation before me did. And what made me think of that was when you said, I see a glimpse of it. It's not necessarily who we would consider the A-list now, but it's those who are trying to come up and trying to reach or aspire to those positions. But I would definitely say that social media could play a role or plays a role in it, because social media allows you, again, to create what you want to, and people buy into those mirages, for a lack of better words. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that statement.
I just want to sit there for a second and just think, I want to sip my tea.
Y'all, please look. Can you please show them the mug?
I'm not look. A college student gave me this. Let me preface this. A college student gave me this mug. This is
I
not a
love that college student.
but a mug that the college student felt best described me. Now, those of you who are watching, you all judge in the comment section and y'all say whether you agree with this or not. This mug right here, I hope you can see it.
It says, "I am not responsible for what my face does when you talk." we love we. So this back and forth is what happens when we talk, whether it's text, phone calls, whatever. But that cup is great.
As a child, a disclaimer, I was not always verbal, but my face would always tell a story. Even to today, when I remember years ago when we started the church here, and they asked did I want to have chairs on the stage, and I said no. And they were like, why not? I said, because I want people to focus on Jesus and not my face. Because
Again, you acknowledge yourself.
I'm embracing it. 40 years later, I'm acknowledging
This is the season of embracing.
I'm embracing the truth that my face does sometimes tell a story. But this interview is not about me, it is about you. So we're going to go back to being creative and talking about that. Do you feel that do you feel that, and we're going to wrap this up in a minute, do you feel like also creativity can be a hindrance as well?
Yeah,
you can be hindered by your own creativity.
absolutely. I think if you don't get a harness on your creativity, it will run you ragged. It will. Being creative is a gift that you must properly channel, and that you must properly put confines around, because it could be a hindrance. Creativity could have you steady running for something and missing what your purpose to do. Kind of that whole thing of a jack of all trades, master of none. It could, being creative could bring you anxiety because you want everyone to accept what you create and not realize that there is a specific audience assigned to what you create. It could force you to be kind of jumping from one thing to another. Anything without structure and anything without moderation is doomed for destruction. And creativity is included in that.
Yeah.
We all know people who are, talented and gifted and probably better than some of the people who get on the main stages. But if you peel back the covers, there is something behind them that is not allowing them to fully thrive. Even something as simple as being a perfectionist, like it's never good enough for the people, and really the thing is, it's not good enough for it's not that it's not good enough for the people. For whatever reasons, it's not good enough for you, and being, just wanting it to be perfect, and it's no perfect thing.
And that's something that we always, and being a creative, that's something that I have to not just get out of my own head, but I also have to not want others to be what I might be in my mind.
Sure.
To trying to desire someone to be creative who is not can be a frustrating thing. They don't see things, you want them, like, can't you? Like, no, I'm just not that. And you have to, sometimes that helps you, because a whole bunch of creatives around each other can be a tragic mess, so you do need buffers and people that may not be that, they might be the thing that balances you and keeps you where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a mentor who's very musical. He says he can't sing. We believe that he can, but he plays, he writes, he arranges, all of that. His wife is the opposite. She doesn't sing, she doesn't play, she doesn't do anything else. She does dance, ironically, but that's it in that music space. And he said he could determine if something is going to work by her response to when he plays it for her.
Mm.
And that's because she's, sometimes you can be too musical and, all that. Like, for an example, I love Kim Burrell. Kim Burrell is one of the artists that if I'm just, I put on and it soothes me. But I'm also musical, whereas somebody else might be like, oh, that's a lot to follow. So yes, it does balance out.
Kim Burrell, she just Kim Burrell can sing the ABCs and want you to just be like, these are my ABCs.
Doesn't it calm you?
Her ear, it's the way she can slide in and out of diminished, the way her ear, I would not play behind her ever. I would grab her cup of water and just give her a water. I'm like, here's your Mortisa. That's all. I can't.
And all of that, I don't know why. It has to be the way my brain is wired. All of that, like listening to her, it was just, whereas for some people it kind of, woo, listening to her, it just takes me, like, it brings me all the way down.
Yeah. Oh, it brings me down and up at the same time. It can chill me, and then she'll hit something up and like, whoo, hold on, wait a minute, you did too much. You took me too fast. Hold on. I want to ask you as we wrap up tonight, what have you learned in this time that you felt like you needed to learn?
To be perfectly honest, I give you two. One is that boundaries are up to me. Like, boundaries are up to me, and it's for me to enforce. Like I said, now most of us, our sanctuaries have multiple purposes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've literally, set up a corner. I didn't have a desk. I lived 5 minutes from my office.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel I needed a desk.
Yeah.
I have a desk, I have a production corner, all of that. So I have to learn how to set boundaries for myself. Like, forget everybody else. Let me do it for myself. So just being intentional, making a decision. Hey, I'm putting my phone down. It's Friday. Nothing can happen between Friday and Monday. I'll pick up my phone and reply to emails Monday, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So scheduling. Now, this is the other thing. Somebody might be like, whoa, who does he think he is? Mm-hmm. I think I learned how great, or have learned and relearning how great I am.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is,
you know what? Before you even say that, but go further in that and building on that, the wrestling that we do as humankind, because even before you said that, you said, I know some people will say, who does he think he is? There was something Shonda Rhimes wrote in her book, The Year of Yes, where she said that there was something about hearing people talk about her greatness and who she was that would, she noticed that when people would talk about her or even talk about others, like say you're at an award show and they're sitting here saying, Darnell Nolin, he's just he's done this in the industry. There's something about us not feeling sometimes worthy of ourselves that we shrink in that. And then it's like, they sometimes post these little memes that say what the guest preacher looks like when they're reading the bio, like, sitting there looking like,
because it be so awkward.
You're like, who are they talking about? As if you didn't email your own bio. But anyhow, we do this, and then we get up and we say, I didn't know who they were talking about. Fool, you were. Anyhow, but we sometimes shrink under that because we have somewhere been taught, and this is a whole nother interview where someone has told us, don't think too highly of yourself, or have a state of humility and don't remember where you came from,
and we have that humility thing all wrong.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes, because as creatives, our life may be so big in the sense of what we do is just, it seems over the top to so many. Some people view that as, you just want a whole bunch of attention, or you always want things about you. But when you said that, it triggered something, because for us to say, I was listening to an affirmation one time, and I was talking to someone about it, and it said, tell yourself in the mirror that you are enough, that you are for today, this world is waiting on you, and this goes on. And the person I was talking to was talking about how it's easy for us to say that to somebody else, and it's sometimes easy for us to even quote that, but to look at ourselves and to say it, it's a whole nother, because there's something in us that we say, yeah, I'm the head, not the tail, above only and not beneath. But to look at yourself and not quote it, but believe it, it's a whole different thing. So when you said that, and I went off on your tangent, but for you to even say, before I even say this, I want y'all to think I'm all that. But to say that I am enough, I think that's just something that we need to do more of. So I'm glad that you grappled with that or landed on that during this time.
Yeah, and for me, it's a number of things, and I'll make it quick, that I could say has forced me. First of all, I think anybody who has adjusted and pivoted quickly in this climate is great. Like we have found a new norm very quickly without much warning. And for those of us who are working through this, literally, again, I was on the road in the middle of promoting a project when I was told to come home. Music has not stopped coming out. So guess what? We had to quickly change how we promote, how we push out, how we roll out. And I mean, talk about pressure. We're rolling out the good news, what everybody needs right now. So it was just like, wait, I could, like, I'm great. Like, I could think this, I could work through this. I can adapt, I can maneuver. So for me in this thing, it's like, no, yeah, you probably been sleeping on yourself. Now it's the time to wake up. And I feel like that is an overall thing for us. And I'll go as far as to say, culturally, I feel like that is one of the things that we should just rise up from this, because some of the survival skills that we're using now are embedded in us because we had no other choice before. So yeah, I the one thing I got from it is I'm great. You're great. We're all great.
So I'm going to end this interview because I will continue. This is a conversation that we're going to have. So I'm going to invite you to come back again, because I believe.
Hey, I'm coming. I'm coming back. If you invite me, I'm coming back.
This is a much needed conversation.
So I'll say this, and I'm done, because we go back and forth. But I feel like that especially resonates with pastors of a certain heart, such as yourself. Like, y'all got a job that is like there's no training for what you guys are rising up to do in this space. I had somebody who was like, and I know they meant no harm. We were talking about releasing music or something, promo, and they was like, well, how long you think this gonna last? And my response was, I've never lived through a pandemic. I don't know. So yeah, okay. So we could do a part 2, but yeah,
we're gonna have to do a part 2. But it is yeah. I'm sorry, y'all. All of y'all who are watching, like, how when people in the sometimes in the church, and I will say this is the church's interview I've had in a while. I try to steer away from these different things, but
it's in us.
I know, I try. It's my core, and I'm not weakening, but I just try to have a more broader conversation. But anyhow, but this is what it's been so funny to me, when I'm trying to refrain, because when sometimes you preach, people be like, say it. So I'm not. We're gonna come back. So I'm gonna give you all enough to come back so we can do part 2 of this, because I believe this is a needed conversation for not just creatives, but for those of you who are really in a self-doubting thing, and that your self-doubt is what's keeping you from being creative, because of comparison, because of envy, or different things like that. But if there's anything you got from this conversation tonight, that you are enough, and that you can choose to be creative, even when you don't have the resources that you think you need to have. So any final words that you want to say to all that are here, that are listening tonight, when they, right now, what would you like to say to all of the creatives?
Yeah. I would say, take one day at a time. take one day at a time. I know what all the memes have said. I've posted some, but take it one day at a time. Some days you're gonna feel highly productive. Like take advantage of those days, full charge. And some days it's gonna be a struggle, like to get out the bed, because what we are dealing with is shared trauma. We're dealing with a new climate. We're dealing with something we've never dealt before. So I would definitely say take it one day at a time and acknowledge what that day is. If you can acknowledge and identify that, then you know how to approach it. You know, it may be a day that you be like, I can't watch no news today, no news. Like, or it may be a day that it's like, ooh, I need some gospel music or whatever inspires you. I don't want to limit it to that, but basically, my advice would be to take one day at a time, acknowledge where you are, and approach it from that vantage point.
When you said shared trauma, that reminded me of something I read the other day that said that we may be in different boats, but we're all in the same storm.
Like this pandemic has proven that class, money, none of that matters. Like none of that is keeping anybody alive. Like we're all trying to figure this thing out.
Well, as always, I've enjoyed talking to you. I hope all of you all enjoyed. Y'all go follow and tell everybody where they can follow you at, where they can find you.
Sure. So
your MySpace page, let them know, Black Planet.
Hey, I've been trying to find out how to get back into my MySpace page. Well, that's an offline conversation. The things that we think about during quarantine. No, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are all the same. It's Darnell, DARNELLE, Nolin, NOLIN. So I'm that on Instagram, Facebook, as well as Twitter. So like, follow me, talk to me. I talk back. I don't bite. And I like to have a good time. All
right. Well, thank you again for tuning in to our interview that we did pretty good. I think we did all right. He tried to come for me, but I came back. I got clapped back for days.
Hey, no. I'm going to have a mug this next one. I got the perfect mug, too. Because he didn't tell me, y'all, it wasn't the mug that was the problem. It's the fact that casually when we doing setup, he's like, oh, okay, you didn't tell me we could bring our mug from this. I got it, though. I got you.
Extraordinary men and women went before us with unmatched resilience, enduring hardship, when called upon to defend and liberate. They said yes. They found courage to rise with every sun, loyalty toward their country, discipline for every command. Even in the darkest hours, they said yes. They cherished and fought for freedom, so those coming behind them were assured of it. And when the moment came for them to give it all, their futures never to be written, they said yes. Today, we think upon their sacrifice and find our way to honor them, saying yes to making the most of what they gave us and filling the earth with God's goodness. We thank them for their yes. They will never be forgotten.
Lives in you.